Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is SVN3E, grade 11 workplace science, and I'm the teacher, Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View Channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 10 until 11 in the morning, and we are in our 8th week of our 9-week course. A reminder that the work to submit for marking are the key questions that are noted with a little key icon, and they are listed at the end of each of your IL lessons. So please do all of them. Some of them are check your understanding questions. Some of them are activities. Most have review questions. So make sure you're answering the questions that are assigned. Explain your ideas and thoughts in complete sentences, and also make sure you're actually answering the question that is being asked. You can do this by hand or electronically. If you want to write in your workbook, feel free, it is yours to keep. However, the spaces are very small, so I'd strongly encourage you not to hand in those notes. You want to make sure you have enough space to fully answer the question. If you're going to hand it in electronically, PDF, Word, and Google Doc files are easiest for us to open. Everyone has access to Google Doc through their NNEC email address, so feel free to ask for help if you're not sure how to access them. So how do you actually submit your work for marking? Well, there's 3 methods. The first is to send your work in electronically. You can scan your completed work if you've done it by hand using a device. If you have an Apple device, the Notes app has a scan function, and if you have an Android device, the Google Drive app has a scan function. These apps generally come with these devices, though they're free to download if you need to. If you're not sure how to do that, there are tech tutorial videos on my YouTube channel where you can check them out, and you can then learn how to do it or ask for help if you need to. Then send them to us here at Wahsa through studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC them to John. I no longer am marking for this course, I'm only instructing, so John is the course marker and you want to connect with him to hand in your work. His email address is jstradiotto@nnec.on.ca. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our 74 Front Street location, or the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Students are welcome to send their work in by fax. If you have access to a fax machine, that is totally no problem as well. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, even though I'm not marking your work, feel free. Both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name Wahsa. All of our radio Zoom classes are recorded and uploaded to YouTube shortly after airing. So it's a really easy way to access all of our course material. It's all under a playlist called SVN3E. And there also is a supplementary playlist that has links to all of the YouTube videos that we've watched in class. So it's a really easy way to find that material and go back and watch it again or find it from its original sources if you're interested. Science is really visual, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos. Even joining us live through Zoom without talking is a great option, or watching the YouTube videos on your own time. If you don't have reliable internet and cannot access those options, let us know and we're happy to send you a copy of the recordings so that you can really set yourself up for success. So again, if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact us. My email address is bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca and my Facebook is bslatewasa. John's email address is jstradiotto@nnec.on.ca. You can call us at the main line, the local number at 807-737-1488, or the toll-free number at 1-800-667-3703. My extension is 2209. John's extension is 2210. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. It's important that I position myself within the context of this course. Is that how it shapes how I teach this course? I have white settler ancestry. I have white privilege. And this means that my experience of education has been much easier than many other folks. The barriers that are in place for the global majority, people of color, I did not experience being a white person. The system is set up for me to succeed, and therefore it was easier for me to succeed. I do work to disrupt this pattern and this cycle of oppression, but it is something that is challenging to, it's not a one moment change. It is a lifelong process. I live in Northwestern Ontario on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe people and work to incorporate the culture and traditions into our course as are appropriate. But as an educator, I have lots to learn and unlearn, and I don't necessarily get things right every time. Our textbook is Eurocentric. It positions the white experience as the sole and primary experience. It ignores Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis knowledges as well as experiences, and this is highly problematic and discriminatory. It just really means that the textbook is not as rich in knowledge and information as it could be. I've not been able to find a better textbook. And once I'm no longer teaching this course, I will not be responsible for it and therefore can't necessarily guarantee that we'll be changing the workbook, though hopefully we can find a better resource. All right, so we are finishing up Unit 7, where we've been talking about natural resources and using them within sustainable practices. This is our last unit today, is Lesson 23, and we are managing Canada's natural resources. So at the end of this lesson, you'll be able to identify and describe the challenges in resource management in Canada. You know that you've met this learning goal because you can explain how to monitor and maintain fisheries and forests. You can explain concerns surrounding mining minerals, the viability and recovery, and you can explain the problems of oil sands. So as Canadians, we benefit from our natural resources, but with these benefits come great responsibility. We have learned that overhunting, overfishing, and overharvesting natural resources can lead to their destruction. When measuring a natural resource's usefulness and managing its extraction, we must consider sustainability. Sustainable practices will allow us to continue to use these resources into the future without using them up or damaging them beyond repair. When we take this approach, the health of a natural resource becomes the focus along with its viability. Viability is its ability to be used in a practical way. So let's look at viability of natural resources. Fish, forests, and minerals can only be harvested in a sustainable way if certain conditions are met. People use different methods to make sure fish, forests, and potential mines are viable for harvest. They also monitor the resources as they are being harvested to make sure they continue to be viable. So, fish. Part of this is counting annually. So counting annually on fish scales is one way people can find out about fish stocks. As a fish grows, its scales grow. Rings on scales indicate that growth. So here you can see in this image, these lines are the annuli that are talking about the growth. And there's some partial lines as well. The annulus or year mark is a special zone of rings that shows where the growth for that year ended in wintertime when growth slowed. So growth happens and then it slows down, and this line indicates that the growth has slowed down because it's wintertime. Annuli helps scientists discover the ages of individual fish. This can help them find out more about fish populations and determine whether or not harvesting is sustainable. From examining annuli, scientists can find out the rate at which fish grow in certain rivers or lakes and compare them to expected growth rates. They can estimate the age at which fish reach sexual maturity, which helps develop fishing laws that make sure enough fish can reproduce at least once before being caught. And they find out if a fish population is under stress by humans. Fish stocks that are being overfished tend to lack mature fish. All right, looking at forests. When managing forests, people must consider many factors. 3 of these are biodiversity and ecosystem health. Forest ecosystems support a great diversity of wildlife species. These species can be negatively impacted by removing too many trees. Economic viability needs to be considered. A forest located too far from a mill where logs can be cut into lumber may be too expensive to harvest. Foresters may also avoid harvesting small trees or tree species that are not wanted for wood products. And then carbon emissions. How foresters harvest trees and renew forests with new planting can affect how much carbon is released into the atmosphere. Foresters gather data about trees before harvesting them. They create succession models and sample the cores of selected trees to find out more about forests. In addition, to help them stay on target while managing forests, some forest managers choose to follow certain standards and become certified. So succession is the natural replacement of plant or animal species in an area over time. Each stage of succession forms the backdrop for the next stage. After a fire or after a forest has been cut down, certain plants and animal species will move back into the area to begin renewing the forest. Foresters use succession models to predict the value of fibers, pulp, lumber, and other wood products, and non-fibers, wildlife, recreation, and natural beauty in forests, depending on where the forests are located. Succession models are often complex computer programs that involve a variety of data sets that help scientists calculate and predict ecological renewal. The models are based on extensive research. They take into account type of disturbance, region, climate, soil type, tree and animal species, and many other factors. So here is a example of a succession model. So this is the forest succession after a fire. So we have a fire, trees are all stripped, and there are animals have left. It's not safe. Then after 1 to 5 years, aspen, poplar, suckers, and shrubs and herbs are starting to grow back. And black bear, deer, and ruffed grouse are all returning. Then in 15 years, that has just continued to grow. It's now a young stand of forest, and the animals are the same, though moose have now started to come back as well. At 50 years, now it's called a young mixed wood, so things are continuing to grow, and black bear are moving out to someplace new, and red squirrels are now coming back, but the trees are bigger. Then we have at 75 years, a maturing mixed wood, up to 150 years, where it's a mature white spruce. There, has grown the best in that area. So it just shows, it's really simple, but it shows how things change, how models change as the new forest grows. All right, so core sampling. Foresters use a core sample tool called an increment borer to collect evidence about a forest's recent history. They drill the borer into a tree to the desired depth. Then they carefully remove a plug of wood from the borer. This method does not harm trees. So here you can see an example of it on screen. This is the borer, and so it's going into the tree, and you can see this small drill has gone in, and now they're pulling it out. And this is just this little piece. It looks like it's less than a centimeter wide, that gives the information of what's happened for this tree. It cuts out a little itty bitty piece. So then here is a diagram of what this might have been telling us. So it tells us the amount of growth. Each ring is each section between 2 rings is a year of growth. So there might be some different coloring. We'll tell you something different. The center of the tree is the knot in the middle. So it's going to tell you different things if you know how to know. By using the sampling method and studying the tree's rings in the wood plug, people can find out about the tree's ages, the number of twigs from the center. That tells you how old the tree is. Precipitations and growing seasons. If it's wider, then it's wetter. So they grow more rapidly in wetter seasons. The nutrients available to trees for growth. If there's any tree diseases or pests, so that'll show up in the rings in terms of they'll not grow as well. Events that might have affected the tree growth, like drought or fires, also will not have grown very well. Core samples also tell foresters about how changes in climate are affecting the health of trees. So forest and wood products managed in sustainable ways are often certified by an international standard system, such as the International Forest Stewardship Council, the FSC. The FFC logo indicates to consumers that a wood product was produced using sustainable methods or came from a forest that was managed in a sustainable way. Canada is the world leader in FSC certification. An FSC certified forest is one that is managed according to certain principles. So they need to follow local and FSC laws. They need to be supporting Indigenous people's rights. They need to have a minimizing environmental impact. Monitoring and assessing operations need to be in place. There needs to be planting of trees. So a sustainably managed forest also helps reduce carbon emissions. This is because forests contain a lot of carbon. We've talked about this before. Approximately 40 to 60% of the carbon in a tree is in the stump and the root system, and it remains in the soil after the tree is removed from the forest. A sustainably managed forest reduces the disturbance to forest soils that comes with tree harvesting. Narrower roads are built through the forest, and new trees are planted quickly after mature trees are extracted. This helps keep as much carbon in forests as possible, even when trees are being harvested. So now you can do the key questions on page 190. Check your understanding question 1. Okay, let's look at minerals. There are many examples of economic gain and environmental degradation in Canada that are related to mining. The effects of mining silver near Cobalt, Ontario in the early 1900s can still be seen today. Lakes in the Cobalt area were drained to allow miners access to silver veins beneath the water. Huge piles of rock and mining tailings remain where they were dumped. The remains of mines and old machinery and buildings are scattered around the area. Cobalt still suffers from arsenic contamination. The mining industry has changed since the early 1900s. However, despite stricter laws and different practices regarding viability of minerals and the environment, extracting minerals continues to pollute the environment, affecting other natural resources like water, wildlife, and fisheries. So viability of minerals. Canada's mineral extractors try to make sure a potential mine is viable before they begin mining. They assess the value of the mineral deposit when they send out exploration teams and make sure it will not be too expensive to remove the mineral from the ground. Field geologists identify a potential mine by taking samples of the same size from different locations. Sampling minerals and metals can be different. One sample may have some sparsely distributed copper particles in it, while another sample may have none. The geologist's job is to determine if their samples contain a significant amount of the minerals they are searching for. If the samples are promising, the mining company they work for will consider developing a mine. So then they need to do an environmental impact assessment. Canada laws attempt to protect the environment from the many contaminants that are released during mining. Environmental impact assessments are completed before a mine is developed. These assessments are designed to ensure that the environment around a mine will not be severely harmed by mining activities. The potential mine will be responsible for complying with laws and for monitoring air, land, and water quality around the mine. The wishes of local communities must also be taken into consideration before mining activities begin. Mines can help bring jobs and other economic benefits to communities. However, when mines are no longer viable, those same communities have to deal with job losses and environmental problems created by the mines. Mining companies are supposed to partner with government agencies to reclaim or clean up the hazardous areas that surround former mines. Often, however, the damage done to an area cannot be completely cleaned up. In the past, there were no rules to govern how mines should operate, and many were abandoned. They are called orphaned mines. Orphan tailings are the abandoned rock, water, and byproducts of mining that are usually close to the orphaned mines. They consist of heavy metals, polluted water, and other contaminants, and can leach into groundwater and remain in the soil. In 2009, Natural Resources Canada introduced the Green Mining Initiative, which will hopefully improve the mining industry's ability to minimize the waste it produces, recycle or reuse waste coming from active mines, develop better ways to reclaim lands around unused mines. So now you can do the check understanding questions on page 189. So now that we understand how these work, we're going to talk about making difficult decisions. With oil sands, it is sometimes hard for people to make decisions about resources that ensure the environment is protected and preserved. For example, despite the negative impact bitumen extraction and use has on the environment, Canada continues to mine and process the oil sands for export and local use. Each glob of oil sand contains a core of sand, then water, then a casting of bitumen. The process that separates these parts uses huge amounts of water and natural gas. Much of the water used ends up in tailing ponds, with other byproducts. Ecosystems affected by oil sands operations have been damaged. The extent of the damage done to the river and groundwater are still unknown. And the land in which the oil sands are located are not reclaimable. In addition to harming water and soil, oil sands operations are the largest source of new greenhouse gas emissions in Canada. People around the world have criticized Canada and the oil sands companies for continuing to mine the oil sands, despite the damage it is causing. At the same time, the world continues to demand oil to run vehicles and airplanes and to manufacture items as diverse as hockey sticks, hair care products, and coffee tables. Because traditional oil wells are harder and harder to find and more expensive to bring into production, the oil industry has placed its bets on the oil sands to deliver oil to the people. Choosing sustainable development of non-renewable resources like minerals and petroleum products is difficult. It means that everyone must change their way of life. It is estimated that each Canadian uses about 25 barrels of oil every year, as opposed to an average person in other developed nations who use about 12 barrels per year. Of course, we must cut down. At the same time, until alternative powered cars and other products are available to all people, petroleum will continue to be in demand. In the end, the choice not to use a resource and to develop and support a sustainable replacement for the resource will eventually become necessary in order to maintain the other important natural resources that Canada has: water, wildlife, fisheries, and forests. And that is our wrap on today. So we were able to blow through that pretty quickly. We are now completed all of the new material. So let's go through the highlights of lesson 23, which is managing Canada's natural resources. Fish and forests is the first thing that we looked at, and we looked at how to monitor their health and how to maintain their sustainability. Mining minerals, viability, and cleaning up and reclaiming we looked at. And the oil sands, extensive pollution. We are dependent on oil sands until we develop affordable alternatives. So this is really something that we need to be concerned about because there is such extensive pollution. It has a big impact and we are still dependent upon them. So hopefully now you can explain how to monitor and maintain fisheries and forests. You can explain concerns surrounding mining minerals, the viability and recovery of them. And you can explain the problems of oil sands. And that wraps up this lesson. You are assigned the activity 7.3 on page 192. And this is a little bit of a different one. So let's look through it to make sure that we understand. So considering different viewpoints about developing a resource. So the task of this is making decisions about the use of Canada's natural resources requires an understanding of many different viewpoints. In this activity, you will consider the viewpoints of 4 different stakeholders or people who are with an interest in a proposed development of oil sands near the imaginary town of Newland. Your task will be to develop questions you could ask each of these stakeholders to clarify the different viewpoints. So you're going to consider these 4 following statements, and you're going to match these 4 different viewpoints to these 4 different stakeholders. So the stakeholders are a local business person, a member of the Green Environment Coalition, an owner of the oil sands property, and a politician. So you'll read through these 4 statements and figure out which one do you think matches with which person. And so I would just write either next to the statement, write I, double I, triple I, IV, next to the statement, or you can hear a number 2, you can write A, B, C, D next to the right one, the one that you think makes sense. Then for number 3, write down 4 questions you would ask the stakeholders to help you understand. So you're going to ask a question to the local business person, member of Green Environment Coalition, the owner of the sands property, and the politician. So you can ask them all the same question and try to get the different perspectives, but it would make sense to ask them different questions in terms of how you're going to get the most information by each of the individual viewpoints. Then number 4, it says share your question with others in your class. You obviously don't need to do that, but see if you can share them with some people in your life to see if you can improve one of your questions to make your questions stronger. And then you're going to reflect. So managing a natural resource like oil requires an understanding of many viewpoints. Canadians use oil and its byproducts in many aspects of their lives, but extraction of this natural resource can negatively affect the environment. How do you think listening to other viewpoints helps you form an opinion about what should be done in situations like the one in Newland? So you want to reflect upon that and give us a few sentences about what your thoughts are. And that is the activity on page 192. Then you're going to do the review questions on page 193, questions 1 through 14. And that is a wrap of lesson 23, which concludes all of our new material for SVN3E. So now all of our lesson material are up on YouTube. We've gone through everything, and in the next few days we'll be reviewing course material to make sure you're set up for your success for your final project, as well as to just make sure that you have an understanding for all of the key questions that we've done so far. You're always welcome to give us a call here, connect with us here at Wahsa. If you have any questions, anything that you're struggling with, please reach out. If the timelines are not working for you, please just communicate with us. If you communicate with us, we can most likely meet your needs. If you want to talk to me, Bronwyn, you can email me at bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can call at the local number at 807-737-1488 or at the toll-free number 1-800-667-3703. My extension is 2209, so that's how you get directly a hold of me, and you can leave me a message there and I'll return your call if for some reason I'm not at my desk. Again, all of our lessons are up on YouTube. My channel is called B Slate Wahsa. They will continue to be up there for the rest of the year, even though I will no longer be teaching this course. They still will be accessible. I will not remove them. They'll still be there. They're all under a playlist called SVN3E, which is our course code. If you want to connect with John, he is the course marker. His email address is jstradiotto@nnec.on.ca. Again, you can call him at the local number 807-737-1488 or the toll-free number 1-800-667-3703. His extension is 2210. So if you want to talk to him directly about the assignments or things that are getting marked, call him directly at his extension. He works Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., but he takes lunch from 12:30 to 1:30, so is not available during that time. He also does teach throughout the day, so there are other times during the day that he will be on the radio and not available. So just leave him a message or send him an email if you're trying to get a hold of him and he's not at his desk. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you've learned something and you're feeling confident with these environmental science concepts and curriculum. Again, always please reach out to us if you have any questions, if there's anything we can do to support you. And remember, our next few lessons are review to set you up for success to wrap up the course. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day. Mwich.